This video is a follow-up to the video in which I showed how to make our construction paper forms for a Pandora's box. In this video, I'm going to show the plastic and leather hard construction of putting together the box. If you have not previously seen my other video on the practice slab boxes, that is a helpful tutorial. This is going to be faster. Now, I will be using slab sticks, but I wanted to show you if you wanted 1/4-inch slab sticks, you can find the paint stirrers at the hardware store. The big paint stirrers make great slab sticks. So if you're looking for an economical option, those are available. I encourage my students to wedge their clay before they begin rolling. And here I am showing the 1/4-inch slab sticks. And as I roll, I continue to rotate, pick up, and flip the clay so it's not embedded into the table surface. Once I get down to the thickness of the strips, then I rib it with a rib to compress and smooth the surface. It makes the slab stronger. And then before the tar paper, I add water to get it shiny. The water will allow the tar paper to stick to the clay. After the water is on, I take a needle tool, and holding the needle tool straight up and down, I trim out the pieces. And sometimes the pieces don't stick well, so if you just drop them onto the tar paper, onto the table like 6 inches, it will re-stick nicely. And then I have to do my last piece because I ran out of space. And again, rib, and then wet, and then stick the tar paper down. And again, I dropped it. Now I lay it out with a blown out explosion view. I am going to be building on top of the bottom, and I'm building with the small side down because I want it easier to get my hand in. I will use the larger piece as the lid eventually, even though this form will be the other way. I'm building it upside down is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to be building it on top of the little base that's there in the center. Now there is one really important step in preparation, and that is to bevel the edges. This is one of the bevel cutters I have in my room. It can be used on either side, but because I have a 4-sided object, I'm going to cut a bevel with the small edge there, and I just pull it on the vertical sides. Now you can do the same thing with a knife, and as long as you keep the knife edge sticking out on the edge of the tar paper, it's taking off a 45-degree angle. So as you see there, the angled edge is now 45 degree because I need to do this with all the vertical corners as I'm going to be placing it onto the base. Now once all of the edges are beveled with the vertical corners, I go ahead and score all the edges that are going to connect. So the top of the base, the bottom of the sides. Here I'm showing my beveled pieces of wood to explain how they go together. Then I slip, and then I assemble. Remember that when you are assembling, that you are pinching together the corners to hold it together. Now, if you ever have trouble with the sides kind of falling apart, you can always use an elastic bandage. I have some of these in my room with a clip to help hold it together as you're doing the construction process. Now, once you have the corners scored and slipped and pressed together, then you need to add the coils on the interior of those corners. The coil is going to be what's going to really blend and mush together the sides so they are nicely combined. So while it's all in the plastic stage, I'm adding those coils, laying the coils in there, and then I go in and blend the coil into the side. You have to make sure that the coil is fully blended, that you can't see the coil distinction anymore. It should be fully blended, fully rounded on the inside. And then I'm ribbing together the corners on the exterior. Now here I'm taking a small rib on the interior just again to smooth out the coils. If you have a gap, say like right here where the tar paper is trying to separate a little bit, you want to be aggressive and you want to go in there and you're going to force together the tar paper with the rib and really push it together. You could also add a little coil there on the exterior if need be. Now, when adding on the lid is going to be very important that you have good construction. You're going to be adding a scored and slipped coil to the scored and slipped top edge. Now that coil is going to be sitting right on top of the edge, and you're going to be sandwiching that coil between the lid and the side of the pot. So I'm scoring and slipping the bottom edge of that top, and now I'm just placing it on there, and you can see that the coil is sandwiched between it. You can see it kind of sticking out. Now I'm taking a rib and I'm really pushing and mushing together the top down into the side. You want the coil to kind of squish out a little bit. That coil, again, it's like mortar between bricks of a wall. You want it to be between the top and between the top edge of the wall. And you just rib away any of the extra. Make sure that your seams are looking really nice and clean. You don't have any gaps or holes. And check everything, and then you'll set it aside to allow it to get leather hard. The way that you store it to get leather hard will depend on the amount of moisture in the area around it. If it's in the plaster damp box, you're probably going to have to prop the lid. If it's not in a damp box, maybe you put a towel over it, or even leave it uncovered if it's in a damp area. But regardless, you want to get it leather hard. Now, we're going to pause the video here until it's leather hard, and then I'll be showing you how to clean it. So cleaning is done the same way that we did the small box exercise. Once it's fully leather hard, I take off the tar paper, and then I begin by cleaning up anything that's perhaps sticking out. If you have a irregular edge and you need to use a shredder, that's fine, but be very careful not to overdo it. Those shredders can take a lot off quickly, so you just want to make the edge look a little bit more regular, and then use ribs and scrapers to really refine that form. You don't need to ever use a shredder in the center of a slab wall because the wall is already flat. You're just using it on the corners. So you can see I'm really going in there back and forth. I'm using ribs, I'm using scrapers. Always start with the harder tool and then go down to the soft. So I start with the scrapers, go to the metal rib, then the yellow rib, and eventually the red rib. And once it's looking really clean, then we need to think about how are we going to cut the form to make the lid. Now I'm making a jig. Remember, I hold my thumb on my needle tool up against one of the wooden tools to make a nice horizontal line. I want to make sure that my line is even. And then once I've made my nice horizontal line, I am going to put the registration mark. I want a key registration. So there is a part that kind of locks the lid together. So as I look at it, I want it to be right in the middle of the side. So I'm kind of marking where's the side, where's the middle of the side. And then I'm using one of the templates because I want to have that key registration part of the oval. And then I'm taking my fettling knife and I'm cutting through on my needle tool line. The needle tool wasn't used to cut it, just to mark it. Now as I take that off, you can see the coils that were smooshed in the top. So I have to get in there and blend those coils. This is still in the stiff leather hard stage because they were kept in our damp boxes. Now you can see that I am blending those entirely. You want to get the coils fully blended into the sides and into the bottom. If it's too dry, you won't be able to do this, but students, we should be able to do it with ours. And I'm just removing some of the excess clay in there from after I build it, smoothing out anything that looks like it needs to be smoothed on the interior. Takes a little bit of cleaning. And I'm just scraping away using the end of that wooden knife as kind of a rib as I do that. Okay, now the lid fits on there nicely. So I know it has a key registration. It's only going to fit on in one direction. Now I do want to do the next thing with the lid. Even though it fits on there nicely, it can still slip around and perhaps slip off. So I'm going to make what's called a flange that sticks down in the lid. So I'm making some coils and I'm flattening them just a wee bit, and they're about 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm just trimming the ends so they look, or the sides so they look nice and flat. So the flange will be on the interior of the lid, and it's going to stick down on the inside of the pot itself. I'm going to trim away a little bit right there by that key registration point because I don't really want the flange at that point, it's going to stop on either side of that. And you can see I have it positioned on the interior of the lid, and it sticks up, so it's going to stick down in the pot. This is going to be what keeps the lid from sliding around on the pot. Then I'm going to score the interior edge of the lid. I'm going to score the flange itself, and then I'm going to slip. I'm just using one of my paintbrushes there, and I'm going to add that slip onto there. So you can see it's now positioned on the inside of the lid, and I don't have it covering that key registration point, and then I'm going to blend. And again, my lid is leather hard, so I should have no problem blending these coils on the inside. Really get it fully blended. If you don't blend that coil, it's going to fall off. So the inside is blended. Now I'm going to be blending the exterior of it. And that one, I'm not quite as aggressive. I'm getting in there and trying to blend it real neatly. But again, I want that wall to be sticking straight up because that flange has to fit right down in the pot. And lastly, I'm just going to tidy up the edge of the pot and check out the next video in which I will show how I'm finishing off the Pandora's box and adding all the details and refinement.